I think we got people in. A lot of people join a little bit later, but thank you guys for showing up on time. You're not the slackers. You're the cream of the crop here. So, all right. So let's get going here, guys. I'll read my boring intro and then we'll have fun after that. How does that sound? That sounds like a good idea, huh? James, why don't you go ahead and start the live stream?
Well, I thought I did.
Good.
You
Andrew has a
gotta
good sense
click
of humor tonight. What do you
more and
going
then
Look
it will
on,
here?
say
look on Restream to see
custom.
if it's streaming.
It'll say cut. Yeah, it's streaming. You got it.
Okay,
Yeah,
you're good.
sorry, I should have verified to you. We're good to go, James.
Okay,
Thank you,
I'm
James.
out.
All right. Okay, welcome to what we are calling here the Licensing Playbook Live. That's a nice mouthful, Licensing Playbook Live, but I think it's a cool name. Topic today is keeping your licensing deal on track. We're streaming every Wednesday at 5 Pacific, 6 Mountain, 7 Central, and 8 Eastern, which is right now, basically. We do this every Wednesday. We have a lot of fun with it. We hope you guys are going to have some fun too. My name's Andrew Krause. I co-founded InventRight with Stephen Key over 25 years ago. Stephen, he waved before I asked him to wave. He beat me to it. This webinar is your go-to guide for learning how to license your product ideas to companies that are actively looking for innovation, which is the vast majority of companies these days. Not everybody, but most of them. Each week, we'll break down real world strategies and exact steps you need to take to get in the front door of companies. You'll learn how to pitch with confidence, avoid common mistakes, and dramatically increase your chances of landing that licensing deal. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to ask questions in the chat box or by digitally raising your hand here on Zoom. If you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, we're streaming to all those platforms. Simply type your questions into the chat and we'll get to a few of those as well. Dana is with us today, and she is our Gateway Outreach Manager. Dana, go ahead and give a wave there. Chad is also here. Chad, give a wave too. He is one of our outreach team as well. Dana and Chad's job is to reach out to companies on our clients' behalf here at InventRight under our Gateway program. We love having them on because they're a great addition because sometimes you just guys get tired of listening to Stephen and myself ramble. You need some other people. You need to hear Chad and Dana ramble too, which they got some good rambles. So today's topic is keeping your licensing deal on track. You've got a company's attention and they want to move forward with your idea. The question is, how do you make sure everything stays on track? If you haven't done it before, it can be very intimidating, confusing, concerning, upsetting at times. We're digging into this during our weekly event, the Licensing Playbook Live, happening right here. We'll talk about the elements of a strong licensing agreement, the challenges to watch for, and how to decide if a deal is worth sticking with or if it's time to walk away. Now, I have some insider information that Stephen actually made notes and prepared for this presentation. So that's pretty amazing. So I think you guys are in for a treat. So take it away, Stephen.
Well, wow, Andrew, what a great sense of humor you have tonight. What's going on here?
I'm feeling a little
You-
smart assy.
did you
What can I
start the
say?
cocktail hour a little early? What's going on?
Yeah, this is water. It's not vodka. So
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Okay.
welcome everyone. Uh, this is kind of interesting because I can tell you from experience that once you sign the licensing deal, do you just walk away? Well, you can. I can tell you from my experience that walking away uh, sometimes doesn't really work out too well. I think you need to stay involved, and I think you need to let them know you want to be involved and you want to be helpful, you want to be part of their team. Because I can guarantee you there's going to be a few hiccups along the way. There's always a few hiccups along the way. And if you don't know, if you're not involved and if you're not talking to them and having a relationship with their team, you never want to get a notice that they want out of their licensing agreement. Okay. And that does happen occasionally. So this is all about the topic is all about keeping your licensing deal on track. So what does that mean? So you sign this deal, you're pretty excited about it, but what happens next? I can tell you that the company that has licensed your product from you, they probably have assigned your project to a project manager. And now this project manager's job is to basically pull everything together to hit a certain date to launch in the stores at retail or online. And that's a big job for one person. And that project manager needs to bring in some help. So they might bring in someone from sales or someone from, packaging, or maybe someone from, of course, manufacturing, engineering, all these people together to put together a plan so they can get your product to market. So they're dealing with some issues. And the first and foremost issue is maybe manufacturing your product. Sometimes it goes pretty smoothly, but sometimes it doesn't. Even the simplest ideas can go, I wouldn't say go wrong, but they're having problems. Dana, you know there's a very large deal that's happening with a very large company, and it's a very simple product. It looks really simple, right?
Mhm.
But they're having problems. So what's happening? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think that when we pitched the idea to the company, they kind of jumped all over it really, really quickly. It was like done quick, quick, quick. Which normally does not happen. I reached out to the company. They got back to me right away. Yeah, we're open ideas. Send them the sales sheet. They said, hey, we're pitching to Target and Walmart. We want to see if there's interest. Can you have us something? Boom, boom, boom. And it was like everybody we all jumped on it and let's get this client ready. Send it on over. They pitched it to Walmart, to Target. They liked it. And then there was just so much more work that they had to do. We've been talking back and forth with them it was last Christmas, because it was right before Christmas that they were doing this, maybe November. And the biggest thing is just keeping the line of communication open with them. Constantly, not annoyingly like bothering them, but just constantly touching them to make sure that they know that we're still here. We're still willing to do whatever it takes to get this deal done.
Yeah, and they're having some manufacturing issues.
Mhm.
It's a simple idea. It's really simple. When you look at it, go, well, that's you got to be kidding me. There's no moving parts.
Right.
It's one piece of material with some adhesive. You got to be kidding me. What's the issue with this? Well, yeah, because it's going to go on skin and it has to be able to pull up and pull down, and there's all these things that happen, and they haven't hit their dates. They just haven't hit the dates because I was on the call when they wanted to move forward. And so we got into an agreement. Everybody's excited. They got the samples to the big retailers. Everything's going smooth. But then they hit the problem with, hey, how do we manufacture the darn thing so it actually works? So part of the issue, and we're going to talk about it, how do you handle that issue? And we're going to dive a little bit deeper in just a minute. I don't want to jump too far ahead. How do you handle it? Because you're going to have issues. So that was one issue, was manufacturing. The second could be cost. You guys, can you imagine them doing all this work and they come back and they go, geez, this doesn't hit a certain retail price point. We showed the buyers and they don't want it now. That's real, especially in today's environment. Everybody's pretty price sensitive. So that could be another issue. Functionality, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, you know how the product works, but maybe it doesn't, maybe they're designing it and they left off a feature that you think is really important. Dave, did that happen to you at all?
Yeah, yeah, it did with my product that
Yeah.
well, you mentioned the packaging. It was on the packaging
Okay.
that they actually sent me over a sample image of what the packaging was going to look like. And my shower caddy had two main features on how it was going to attach to the shower curtain rod. It was going to be either with grommet or Velcro, and they only had an image of Velcro on there. And I said, you really should have the image of the grommet on there as well. So when you looked at the packaging, you could tell that you could hang it both ways. And they missed the boat on that. Now, my company they wanted me to be involved. They asked me questions about the material that I used to make the prototype, but I knew, I think anytime we invent in our product, in our category, we need to understand the category. We need to understand the materials And this just happened to be a fabric. So I knew about stretch of fabrics. And if you cut it one way, the mesh is going to keep stretching. So you have to cut it another way so it doesn't stretch. They also asked me about the depth of the pockets and how wide it should be and what the trim was made out of, because it had to be made out of stuff that wouldn't mold, because it was going to be used in the shower. It was going to be damp, and the length of everything and what I used. I was very, we even talked about what grommets to use, because the grommets had to be rust free. They couldn't rust because it was going to be in the shower. They were extremely, the only thing that they did, and this is something that, and this will happen when a company says, no, we're not going to do that, because that happened. They wanted to put elastic on the top of each pocket. And I said, it doesn't matter. That's going to cost you. I wanted to save them money, and they disagreed with me. And they said, no, we want to put elastic. I said, elastic will not make one bit of difference in the way this is designed. It's not going to stretch out anymore. So you can get bigger bottles in there. So we kind of went back and forth, and they said, no, we're going to do elastic. And I just thought, well, basically that's stupid, but okay, if you want to spend the money on doing elastic, do it. I mean, I wasn't going to argue with them.
Yeah, there's always going to be some issues, and sometimes they'll lean on you, sometimes they won't. Is James Sheehan, is he actually available? I see him there.
No, he stepped away.
He stepped away.
He just started the list stream.
Well, I can tell you, when one of my projects, they were going to shoot a commercial with Alex Trebek, and they weren't capable of making a prototype. So they had me make the prototype, and James Sheehan made the prototype. And if you watch the commercial with Alex Trebek, you can't tell it's a prototype. It's beautiful on camera. Mm-hmm. But they didn't have the ability to produce one, especially at that speed. And they asked us to do it, so we were available. So I guess what I'm saying is there could be all these different things that are happening along the way. And so to stay involved with the project manager or someone in engineering, it's a good idea, right? Because you might be able to come in and solve a problem and keep it moving forward. Because how many projects are they working on?
Mm.
Right? I mean, think about it.
Yeah, it's a lot. I got a question for you, Stephen. Dana, it was a slightly smaller company. She was working directly with them a lot, it sounds like, from what she was saying. They're going back and forward a lot. Not all companies will do that, but there are certain milestones, things that they can share with you where you can still catch things and help. One is sending here's the production prototype. Yeah. Here's the packaging. Here's this, here's that. So even if they don't want to talk to you all the time, like they were with Dana, some don't. What do you think are the most important milestones where you should really look at this to see if you can help?
Well, they're going to, well, first of all, a trade show. Well, the first big thing is, can we manufacture it? And is the cost going to be right? So that's probably the biggest thing. But next is going to be a trade show, because they want to get it to a trade show and get a read as fast as they can. Or they might want you to just make samples to show it to a buyer. And you might have to step in and make samples. I cannot tell you how many times I have made samples, right? Because I just had the skill set. They didn't have it, and they were a little overworked because they're doing so many things. I do remember coming back to the spin label again. They didn't know how to manufacture it. And heck, I didn't know how to manufacture it. But they had me come down to Monrovia from Modesto for 6 months. I came down every week. And I sat with the engineer and the press operator, basically holding their hand and being a cheerleader so they didn't give up and walk out. If I hadn't been there supporting that team, it would have never come to market.
That was a very difficult project, right?
Well, it was. And I think at the time, they knew it was going to be difficult. They probably thought I knew more than what I did. I was able to think of different options as things didn't work, but they knew they just needed people that wanted it to work, right? They wanted it to work. So how do you ask them, can I be part of their team? I think it's really quite simple. You don't want to force yourself and say, hey, you need to do it this way, or it needs to be manufactured in the US. It has to be this material. You don't want to be that person, but you want to be part of the team and say, look, if I can do anything to help, I am here. And if you have any difficulties, please include me.
Well, and I think, Stephen, I think you can help in ways like, I mean, you talked about manufacturing and this and that. I mean, there's even simple ways that you can help out. For instance, you talked about how busy they are and how many projects they have going on. So you just naturally there's going to be things that fall through the cracks. So when they took on my product, they were reaching out to these different buyers and companies and trying to get it in and all of that. And I brought a simple thing to their attention in the very beginning, which they had all of their stuff in order. They got everything put together, but I said, why is it not for sale on your website? They just completely missed it in the beginning, and they're like, well, that's a great point. We should have that on there. They were pursuing all these other things and big things that they wanted to do. I was like, well, you have units. Why are we not selling it from there? And just one of those little things that was, overlooked. And yeah, so any little thing you can kind of help keep them on track, or, not to say that they wouldn't have gotten to it, but I mean, you see an opportunity there where maybe they didn't. It never hurts to have a separate set of eyes on anything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with my particular product, I helped them find the fabric. Like I had already researched all of that. How much can you buy, 100 yards of fabric or whatever? And this is the type of fabric it was. And whether they were going to use it or not, that's just showing them that I'm doing my part to help them. But again, I think it really depends on, and we've come across companies that say, we got it from here. Thank you so much. You'll get a check. That's it. Like, and you really can't force yourself into helping them. But I think from the very beginning, starting the relationship off with a company, being professional, being friendly, being helpful, and letting them know, I'm here to help you and help you make this work. Whatever you need from me, just ask.
Well, Dana, when you say it's all about how you carry yourself, if you carry yourself as an asset rather than, more of a liability.
Yeah, sometimes we think because they're a big company, they know more than we do.
Yeah.
And I think that's the wrong assumption. I think their skill set may be broad in certain areas. But last week we talked about marketing. And they're a big company, they know all about marketing. Well, yes and no. I mean, do they know how to get to a company to put your product on TV? Maybe yes, maybe no. So there's all these different things you can do to help keep your licensing agreement on that deal on track. And that's just being involved and being aware of all the things they have to do. Now, I'm going to switch it up a little bit here because I can tell you that they're going to miss some goals. Guarantee it.
Oh, they're gonna do it perfectly every time, Stephen.
Nope.
They're not gonna make any mistakes. Come on.
No.
I'm not sure if I had a deadline on my project that they did hit exactly.
Nope, they're going to mess up.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. So what do you do when they mess up? Well, the biggest mess up is going to be when you don't get that royalty check. They missed the date.
Yeah.
Because most likely, if you cut a good deal, you probably have minimum guarantees. Right? We talked about minimum guarantees, or maybe we really haven't, but part of a good deal is having some type of performance clause, usually tied to sales, that they don't hit a certain sale quantity, which is really what you're going to get paid royalty per quarter, per year, then they lose that exclusivity, they lose the rights. So to me, that's probably one of the most important things you can have in a licensing agreement. Of course, there's other things as well. But I can tell you, even though you're giving them a runway, because you have to give them some time before it starts, right? Typically, you might give them a year. But let's say they miss it. How do you handle that? Do you look at their contract? No, they breached, and do you send them a letter going, you breached?
Stephen, I would say it has a lot to do with also when they breach. I'd say 90% of the time that breach is going to be in the beginning when you're new and you're fresh and they haven't got that system worked out of maybe paying you or sending your report. And in the beginning, yeah, that's going to be a horrible call to call and dissolve your contract after missing that. Chances are there was just some miscommunication or something. I would be far more concerned if I was a year or two into my deal and then they started missing.
Yeah, I agree with Chad. I think most of the time, if on month 9 or month 12, that's when the first minimum guarantee kicks in and they were supposed to have launched it and been selling by that time, and they're not. They haven't launched it yet. That's probably the most common thing. And so Stephen, of course, every single time you put the screws to them, you go, you violated, I'm cutting you off completely at the kneecaps. I don't care if you spent $80,000 on this, you're done.
But that's not to
Isn't that the no?
that's not to say to write it off completely though either. You should
I'm
document
joking.
all of
I'm
that.
joking.
You should definitely document all of that if there is a breach, should that come up later. But I mean, I wouldn't use that to throw in their face for sure.
No.
Especially
What would you do, Stephen? What would you
Well,
do
I
in
can
that scenario?
guarantee you they're not going to tell you they breached,
right.
but I can guarantee you're going to know it because you're expecting that check and it
Right.
doesn't come. So you give it a little bit more time and it's still not there. And you're thinking, wait a minute, what's going on here? That's why I said at the very beginning, if you can keep in touch, then you're going to know when they start to miss stuff.
I had to follow up for my very first one. My very first one's right here in this frame, and it's $6. my very first royalty check. But I went looking for my $6.
What's going to happen is you're going to be a little irritated by it. And you're going to wonder, what did they do wrong? And why did they miss the dates? And the last thing you want to do is start to blame them. That's why if you stay with them along the way, you can kind of get out ahead of it. But what I've noticed, when they breach a contract, it just gives you the ability to build a stronger relationship with them. It's actually an opportunity to build a stronger relationship, but it's also an opportunity to renegotiate too. I love when they breach because I know they're going to. It's common. I don't mind. They got a little behind. So what? It's okay. I'm more concerned that they don't give up.
And I'd be more concerned if you couldn't get a hold of anybody. I mean, as long as you can talk to them and you have a line of communication open, you can pretty much resolve most things.
Yeah, so you call them up and said, hey, you do it with a little sense of humor. Hey guys, what's going on? I know that we had a certain date to hit. I know I didn't get a check. Hey, help me understand what's going on.
So I got a mortgage payment and I'm short $6.
Well, what's going to happen, you guys? They're going to tell you most likely it's just a chain reaction that happened. The manufacturer, supply chain, material. I mean, it's just common. Things go wrong. So my feeling is you understand it, you listen to them, you come back and say, look, what's your next plan? And that's what's happening with this one particular job that Dana's involved in. They came back and they said, look, we're looking for the next revision. And there is a decision to make. Do you tell them you breach, I want it back? Or do you say, can you explain to me what's happening and what are the next steps? And are you still interested in moving forward? That's what's more important.
When I've experienced where they
just a minute. Then they came back and they said, look, we're going to have other samples. We're confident moving forward. They appreciated the attitude. They were like, my God, this guy's not going crazy on us. In fact, I remember when Paul wrote it, sent it, and they got such a positive response from the company that, yeah, it's still going forward. Just it got a little delayed. Yeah. Yes, Judd.
Oh no, I was gonna say I've been in a little bit of experience where they breached a little further than that to the point where things had to be kind of split ways, and that didn't. I mean, I guess I always envisioned that as being some big intimidating thing with attorneys and all of that. It was a phone call. It was a phone call just like I had with any of those other things where things just weren't panning out on their end, and they were understanding, and there was a mutual. Almost like a mutual breakup, and things were provided. I was given manufacturing contact information, all of these different things I was given, so even if it does come to that point, it doesn't necessarily have to, at least in my head, I saw it as being a much bigger thing than it was.
Well, you have some decisions to make, and do you stay with them or do you cut loose? And I can tell you, most likely it's no one thing that's happened. So I have a tendency to give them a little bit more time, get another deadline, but it gives me time to renegotiate. Because maybe the minimum guarantees were a little low, maybe there's no advance, maybe I need a holding fee now, but it allows me to go back and go, all right, you guys, let's talk about this. What can you do for me? And they're more likely, if they're still interested, to come back and say, okay, let's see if we can do something else. So I don't mind them breaching at all. In fact, I expect it to happen. In fact, when they breach, you know what they tell me? They just got greedy. They didn't hit the timeline. They got too greedy. And even if you have high minimum guarantees, sometimes they go, hey, we want the world. That's when I see them missing the minimum guarantees a little bit. They want too much. They bite off too much. And what happens? They can't get it. So to me, sometimes it's just them getting too excited. They made some missteps. So now we come back and say, all right, let's talk about it. So the other thing you can do is walk away. And sometimes you want to walk away. So that's why the minimum guarantees are there. You send them a letter. It usually happens this way. There's a cure period. You give them a notice that they breached. They usually have 30 to 60 days to correct it, meaning writing you a check. Really simple to fix. If they don't write the check within a certain period of time, they breach, you get it back. It's really, as Chad said, it's not some contract litigation. No, they're usually, and sometimes they're happy to give it back, and they failed.
It takes the pressure off of them a little bit. You know what I mean? That they it's almost it's a breakup that neither one wanted to admit, essentially, but it's a good thing for both parties. That takes the pressure off of them. That frees you up to be able to pursue other things. I wouldn't go running for the hills without fully exhausting every option that you have with that company. And also, if you can, I wouldn't go running for the hills if you didn't have a backup plan, like if another avenue to go
But
to.
here's a good story. One of our members, Michael Van Hoist, that has the push and hang. I think it's called what's it called? A hang hero now, I think it's called.
Yeah.
He launched it with a great company. Andrew and I have been to the booth. Great company. They got it on QVC. They were selling the heck out of it. But Mike wasn't happy with it.
Well, the sales did start to decline. So
But he wasn't happy. And he just called him up and said, I want out of the contract. They let him out. Because he thought he could do better.
And he did.
But even though they didn't miss anything, he still wanted out. And they were kind enough to say, it's more of a DRTV product, blah, blah, blah. So he grabbed it, licensed it to another company, and the company got an 800 Lowe's or Home Depot, just like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a smart, brave goal. It was a brave move on Mike Van Hoist to yank it. But he just called him up and they said, no problem. So it doesn't ever have to be ugly. It doesn't have to be a fight. No.
Sometimes they're expecting that call, I would say. I mean, they know what they've held up on their end of the bargain and what they haven't. They know if they've had the momentum behind it or not.
Sometimes they just made a mistake. They overcommitted. So typically, these are big companies, right? They don't just turn on a dime and launch a new product within 2 weeks. I've talked to inventors that believe that's how that happens. But typically it takes around 10 months to 18 months for a product to hit the market. And so let's say they wrote down on the contract, licensing contract, your first royalty payment is 8 months, and they were just stupid. They overcommitted. They were too generous there. They should have known it would take them longer, or they were overly optimistic. It would take them a short period of time because this guy's working, but that guy left the company or something. Things happen. And now they're at month 9 and they're like, oh crap, we got to pay this royalty payment. We haven't even finished bringing it to market.
Here's something that's really important. This is probably the best tip I'm going to give you tonight. In your licensing agreement, make sure that when they breach, you get it back. They lose all rights. It does not convert to a non-exclusive.
Right.
People miss that all the time. You give them an exclusive, everybody wants it, you give it to them, they breach, it goes to a non-exclusive, meaning they don't have to pay the minimums, most likely, and they still have rights. What that means is you can't give it to somebody else. An exclusive.
You're pretty much dead in the water.
Well, it doesn't have as much value when you can't offer someone else an exclusive. So when you get that licensing agreement, make sure that if they do miss something, and the breach could be a lot of things, could be, I like it really geared towards sales, but it could be other stuff as well. But the point I'm making is do not let it go to a non-exclusive. Okay.
Well, and it should be written in the contract. All the contracts we do, it doesn't revert to a non-exclusive ever.
No,
Yeah, everything I did, I retained all of the rights to my stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everything back to you.
that's a clever move on their part.
What's really interesting is when my product, I signed my licensing deal in October, and they did and I didn't even know they were doing this because they don't have to tell you what they're doing. You sign the licensing contract and minimum guarantees and the plan. This is the plan, and they made a small run of the, they did the packaging, they did everything, and then they showed it at the Chicago Housewares show. And I really did think that it was like a done deal. Like, this is, buyers are going to come, they're going to buy, they're going to order whatever. And after the show, I went up to them because I was actually at the show when it, when it was being, presented. And after the show, I said, so how was the response? And they said, it was good enough. We're going to move forward. And I thought, oh, that's great. And then I thought, well, what if it wasn't good enough? What would you have done? You would have just said, hey, nobody wants it, and whatever. And then I would have got it back. They would have just said, I want to do it.
One thing I want to mention, you guys, one of the biggest benefit of staying close to what they're doing, there's a couple benefits here. One benefit is that if they make any changes or they overcome an obstacle, you know what it is. Mm-hmm. Because that could be intellectual property. Right? I mean, think about it. If they have to redesign it for manufacturing, and you've got some manufacturing technique in there, something, and you realize that you didn't know what that was, but they've told you about that. And in your licensing agreement, it does say any improvement you own, you want to know what that is. So that's why it's good to stay close. And here's another reason why you want to stay close. Know the people in sales. Mm-hmm. They will tell you and they will brag to you when they get in new accounts. Mm-hmm. And you want to know that. In fact, in your licensing agreement, you want them to specify in your royalty checks, your royalty statement, where they sold it. Not just the big number. Why? Because you'll know what stores are carrying it. You'll know how to watch it yourself a little bit. You'll know some of the sales. See, if you know the sales guy, you almost don't even need to audit these guys. And I've never audited a company yet, but you might have an audit clause in your licensing agreement. But if you know the sales guys are selling it, and you can look at the royalty report, it's helping you understand where that money's coming from. It's another way of you being close to the situation.
I think another benefit for being close is also to the more further you in, the more you're going to learn, and the more you learn, the easier it'll be the next time.
And I think you should be very slow to anger about anything. The scenario that Stephen has talked about before with a lot of you would go, well, they did that on purpose. But Stephen had a very positive attitude. He did the Michael Jordan wall ball. I don't know if you have it there, Stephen. And he licensed that to Ohio Art, a toy company. And then he was in the grocery store. I've never seen Stephen go in a grocery store. I guess, I don't know. But anyway, so apparently back in the day, he went in grocery stores and he saw a little mini Michael Jordan wall ball. It's a little basketball hoop you stick to the wall on a cereal box. And he's like, what the hell? I'm not getting paid royalties for this. And I think most of us would get really upset. Oh, they're screwing me for royalties on this. And he just went to them in a very friendly way. Hey, I think you overlooked something. And they were like, oh, so sorry. And he really sincerely believed they didn't do it on purpose. Most of us, I think, would. So can you talk a little bit about that, Stephen? I mean, even if you know they did it on purpose, it's good to be friendly.
They were sending royalties and everything was fine. And yes, I was looking on the back of cereal boxes because I thought those little trinkets and trash were very clever. And I was fascinated by people designing those little giveaways. And sure enough, there was a little mini Michael Jordan. I thought, wow, on Wheaties, and I'm not getting royalties. So I just called him up and said, hey, I noticed that you're selling. Great job. I love it. But I don't know if I'm receiving royalties on that. And they said, they went back over, looked and said, you're absolutely right. Then sent the royalties over. It's no big deal. So I guess what I'm saying is, before you jump to any conclusions, don't do that. Give them the doubt. Show them you're part of the team. Show you're flexible. Show that you have some sympathy on all the stuff they're going with. You guys, they will never forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that, my first royalty check, which was on time. In fact, I told it because my first royalty check was only like 1 month from the third quarter. And I even told them, don't worry about that. Just put it into the fourth quarter because it was foolish for them to do. When they sent me my first royalty check and they sent me the statement, I didn't understand it at all. Like, it was just a bunch of numbers and then quantities, and they were all over the place, and I didn't understand it. And I was glad that I had a good relationship with them. And I called the guy that was in charge of making the royalty statements and sending the checks. And I just said, can you explain this to me? What all these numbers mean? I mean, I knew what the amount was, I knew what the percentage was, but I didn't understand the units that were sold, where they were sold, how many they were sold. And so once he explained everything to me, it was fine. I would call them up all the time and ask them questions. I mean, not all the time, but
Don't get me wrong. There's one project I have that the minimum guarantees per quarter were $250,000. And so when it was late, I called them.
oh yeah.
And not with anger, but saying, hey guys, just checking in. Is everything okay? Because I didn't want that to stop. It wasn't like I was like mad at him. I was like, is there a problem that I'm aware of? Because I didn't want that money to stop. And I was in Costa Rica when that happened. And I tell you, it was a lot of money to be a little worried that maybe something went wrong. So it doesn't really matter the dollar amount. What it matters is your attitude of getting back to them and show them, hey, I'm aware of it. I'm concerned about it. What can I do about it? Please explain to me. So you're really being part of the team. But at the end of the day, you want them to sell the heck out of what you have, right? And you want to be there supporting everything along the way. And if there's a problem, you want to be able to solve it. You'd be surprised what you can contribute and what you could do, because at the end of the day, they're just working. They go to work. They want to leave at 5 o'clock. For you, it could be all your income. You're thinking about 24 hours a day. You care much more than they will ever care. So you need to stay involved. Yeah.
Stephen, let me ask you a question. Is it a good idea to ask them about, and when we say them, they usually have a contact at the company. Maybe you're still talking to the marketing guy. Maybe you're talking to the manufacturing of it. Ask them about their process. So what's the process? What do you guys typically do with a new product? Do you do this and that, or like what? So, because if you know what the process is, then you're just not constantly bugging them, and you know what stage you're at. And they won't always give that to you, but is there any way of asking for that? And also, can you talk about typically just the big picture basics, like what's the process? What are they doing next, here, here, and here?
Yeah, I think when you start to build that relationship with them, they start to kind of see that you're not going to be a pain in the ass. And you do that by not asking too many questions. You be supportive. Can I help? You're not going to be that person that sends a red flag that, hey, we got to get this guy and move him off the side. We don't want to take his call. So I think it starts at the very beginning, how you conduct yourself. And I think if you don't have the experience at times, you're probably sending red flags even before you even get the deal that they might not want to deal with you. I hate to say it, because you're new at this, and so you got a million questions. But every time you ask a question, it's a cost of money. So you want to make sure you are getting as much information as you can, and maybe you have a coach or a mentor. Maybe ask ChatGPT. Who cares? Get the information so you don't have to have them educate you on all the process. Don't do that. You're going to kill these guys. So Andrew, getting back to your question, you want them to know that, hey, you're aware of what they're trying to do. You want to be helpful. And if you have a background and part of it, if you're an engineer, tell them you're an engineer. Well, if you're licensed idea, tell them you've done it before, or you can help with prototypes, right? What do you guys need? Help me understand. Hey, when's the next trade show? Right, just ask some basic questions. And at the very beginning, they'll probably tell you more at the very beginning than they will later because they're trying to brag a little bit. They're trying to get you. But at the end of the day, just be short, sweet. Don't have, if they get a call, don't go 30 minutes, make it 15. Go in and out. They'll appreciate it. They'll appreciate that you respect their time.
You can make a general statement too. If you run it, let's say they're doing some manufacturing research. Say, I'm not a manufacturing expert, but I'm pretty creative of how I think about things. That's how I came about with this idea. So if you can let me know about any issues, manufacturing issues that you come across, and you let me know, I might not be able to come up with a solution, but I might be able to. So feel, you're always welcome to share that with me, and I might be able to come up with a different way of looking at it because I do look at things differently. So just generally saying, I look at things differently. So if you guys have a problem, you're welcome to share it with me. And if I have a solution, I'll share it with you. If I don't, well, at least you get, I gave it a shot.
You guys, if you really want to be smart about this too, once you sign that agreement, and if they're close by, why don't you go give them a little visit? Stop by and say, hey, I'm coming into town. Just like to stop by and say hello, introduce myself. And I'll tell you, once they see you eye to eye, oh, that makes all the difference in the world. It really does. And that's why trade shows are important to go to trade shows, to look them in the eye. Those type of things leave a bigger impression. There might be an engineer, you meet him for the first time, and maybe you find something in common. You get his card. See, once you do that, you have kind of an inside track on some of the people that are going to be involved in. So I would take it from your Zoom call, but the minute that deal's signed, I would make a trip out there, and don't just say, hey, look, I'm coming in town on such day. I'd like to stop by and just say hello. And before you know it, they might give you a whole tour of the factory and everything else. And then next thing you know, you got everybody's card. So now you can contact these guys anytime you want to. That's what I would do. When I went down to Monrovia, I took those guys out to lunch all the time. I met their families. I took the wives out. I wanted to make sure they were my connections. The sales guy, I knew who they were. I knew all of them because at the end of the day, I was going to tap into their knowledge. And they would tell me things they probably wouldn't tell me on a Zoom call or on a telephone call. Especially
they did.
Oh,
they told you a bunch of stuff they weren't supposed to be telling you, right, Stephen?
Well,
we won't get into that.
I mean, most of their employees don't know what they should and shouldn't tell you. Yeah, that's why you do it. And I'll tell you, when you have lunch with somebody or dinner, and give them a beer or two,
that's what
comes out.
Well, beers you never know is going to come out.
I think one of the best feelings that you can have, I know with my licensee, every time I called, they answered the phone or they called me right back or they emailed me right back. They never ignored me. And we had a good relationship. I knew 3 people in that company. I could call any or email any of those 3 people and they would get back to me right away. But I was also extremely professional. Even when I went to the trade show, I walked up to the trade show, I looked at my product on there, took a couple pictures, shook their hand, said, have a great show. And then every once in a while I'd sneak around and see if there's anybody looking at my stuff. And then I didn't bother them. I didn't hover. I didn't hang out, and they respected that. And we had a great relationship for as long as it lasted.
Andrew, why don't you go through some of these questions?
Yeah, there's a good one right here. Thank you, Daniel.
Before you get there, you guys, we're going to do a class just on licensing agreements, all the clauses, things you want to avoid, things that are going to bite you later if you're not aware of, things that need to be in there, maybe things that should not be in there, how to calculate net, so you really know that you're getting the royalty without other things that are thrown in there, how to get a nice advance maybe possible, indemnification to make sure you don't have too much responsibility on the IP part. All the things that are in a licensing agreement, we're going to cover all of it. Okay.
It's a good little promo for the next one. Is that next week?
I don't know.
Okay, it's coming up. Okay.
It's coming up.
All right. So Cynthia said this. This is a good point, Steve. I'd like you to comment on this. Cynthia said, you have to document it. Otherwise, it can be used against you in court. They'll say you weren't enforcing the contract. So, Stephen, let's talk about that. So let's say they are in breach. You don't want to like call them out on it and cut them off at the kneecaps or anything, but you want to document that they are. Um,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
think
verbal, written,
no,
email, like,
you gotta do a written. Cynthia's right. If you think it's going to go south, right, or you're going to have a bigger problem, I like paper trails, you guys. I just do. I like to recap everything. It's not going to, I've been in court with all that. It's not going to save you, but it makes people, I think, a little bit more honest that they things in writing. But Cynthia's right. If they have breached, wouldn't send them a breach letter yet, but I think notifying them that a minimum guarantee payment did not come in. And could we talk about how to move forward? It's not a bad idea. But once they do breach and you want to yank it back or negotiate, it needs to be in writing. Absolutely. There's a process that will be in the contract.
and that's something that you should pay a licensing attorney a few bucks to write correctly. I think that's probably important, right? Or is that overkill if it's
Uh,
obvious?
well, you guys, the minute you lawyer up,
Okay.
um,
Yeah. Then it gets nasty.
it
Yeah.
sets a tone.
Yeah.
And I would prefer not to do that as long as I can. But there's a time, yeah, that you might have to do that. I've never had to. I mean, companies breached on me a lot of. Guys, I looked at breach differently. I looked at this as a great opportunity. I didn't look at it as like, oh no, what do I do now? I look at, okay, what am I going to get now from them? That's the way I looked at it. So
Leverage.
I just think you should have a nice attitude. But if you think things are going to have to be, or might possibly get a little dicey, yeah, paper trail's never a bad idea.
So Amari wrote, instead of asking if you can be included in more of the process, I would tell them, hey, I've had this whole thing stewing in my mind around this item or invention. Would you mind if I send over my vision for this? If you don't use it, there's no hard feelings. Well, I think it depends on what you're sending, Amari. But the things that Stephen and I and Dana and Chad have gotten over the years from inventors, some of it's pretty freaking scary. I mean, it's a mess. It's 25-page documents. It's everything you could possibly think of. It's like a diary. It's this, it's that. It's like, eh, probably not. I mean, the main thing that you got their interest with was the sell sheet and maybe a video showing them how they're going to sell it. I would be very careful about sending them all your thoughts. I would curate them, make them very brief and to the point, and send the right thing at the right time.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah, I think Andrew's right. Whenever an inventor wants to explain something to me, you guys, it doesn't look good. It's usually way overkill. And so if you're going to do that, make sure it's just short and concise, the best, and make sure it's got things that give them the reason why it's important. Right? I like when someone tells me if I'm going to read something, what am I reading? At the very beginning, I think that people appreciate you're reading this because of this, this, and this. Give them a reason why to read the darn thing. But having them try to figure out your conclusion, I think it's painful at best. So if you have an idea that's going to save them time and money, say it right up front. This is going to save you time and money. It's another design that you might want to consider. Perfect.
Hey, you could plug in your ramble into ChatGPT and say, make this, very concise and succinct within half a page. It'll freaking do it. And then
Uh,
you review it and.
How many people are using ChatGPT now? Just raise your hand. Everybody, everybody, everybody. If
Everybody
you're
should.
not, you better, because Andrew's right. If you want to write something, have them condense it or change it or make it a better tone. I think Cynthia mentioned about tone. Tone in an email are usually bad. You know that? I mean, you can write an email that sounds great, but the tone could be like someone can interpret it completely differently. So that tone is
Hmm.
really important, and ChatGPT is really good with tone.
Oh, that's a good
I,
tip, Stephen. So
I
you gotta
have a
say,
suggestion. I have
oh,
a
hey,
good tip.
James.
Sorry, I was listening in.
Oh,
There's another great new AI. Well, I don't know how new it is, but AI called Claude. Has anybody used Claude? Claude's really good and it humanizes the writing. It makes it sound like a real person, not like a computer generated. Claude's
Claude?
really good. I use it to write a lot of my scripts for my TikTok channel.
Claude.
Claude is
They
really
have a
good.
free, or is it free and a paid
It
version?
has
or-
a free version, but it has a paid version as well.
Okay.
How do you spell that, James?
CLAUDE.
And you feel like it's even better. ChatGPT is amazing with that, but
It's much better. A class that I took on doing TikTok videos, the guys on there told me about it, and I use it all the time. It writes all my scripts now because it really humanizes them. It makes them sound like a real person wrote it and has personality. It's not just very. ChatGPT writes everything very factual.
right, right.
I don't know. My stuff sounds pretty real from that, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it
It's
just
not bad, but if you put it into Claude, you'd probably find that you'd be like, wow, this is quite different.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brandon, this wasn't a question, just a comment, which is very true with regards to issues. He said sometimes it might just be a simple misunderstanding or something that just slipped, and I would always give him the benefit of the doubt
Good
when
idea.
you're bringing it up, but you're being super nice about it. It's just going to want to make him continue to work with you. I mean, not sometimes that could seem passive aggressive, but so be nice. Also, don't, even if you're being nice, but you're accusing them of something in a nice way, make sure that's correct. Make sure it's what's really happening. You
Hmm.
might be coming to the wrong conclusions. You might want to ask some questions before you make any sort of accusation, even if you're being nice, right? So,
Once you head down that wrong path on paper, it's hard to go backpedaling after you've made the wrong impression on that.
No.
yeah, without a doubt. Um, so, uh, I don't know if do we have more? Oh
You
God,
guys,
we have pages.
also on something that's really delicate, I'd rather have a call myself.
Same.
I want to read the room. I want to look in someone's eyes and go, hey, I need to talk to you about something. I need your input. Could you please help me understand this? This is what's happened. Right. I would rather do that because I might there's something about that it's not so formal. It's in writing. Make sure there's one person. So when anything is really sensitive and delicate, I rather do it on a Zoom call or something where I can look at the person and then do it and then get a better read. But once you put it in writing, oh geez, it's there forever.
Yeah, yeah,
On the stuff that's not delicate, just the one-on-one. I mean, you might get off on a story that, it's just you never know what'll come of those conversations. You can really build a lot better relationships speaking to somebody than you can through,
Yeah.
you know.
No, this isn't an AI seminar, but we do talk about AI because it's a big deal these days. But Cynthia wrote something nice. She wrote, "Not if you prompt it correctly." She's talking about ChatGPT, I believe. You need to use an act as prompt. She says an act as prompt in quotes. I can explain sometime if you want. I teach workshops on AI tools in
I
SoCal
think
universities.
I
Yeah,
think she's right because when they write, the ones I write, I give them the tone.
yeah.
yeah.
And it really does a good. I'm surprised how well it does it. And it doesn't look like a machine. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I'm going to try Claude. I'm going to tell it the same thing I just told it. See how it writes it. I'm going to compare the two.
Yeah,
Hey, Steve,
we like
you guys use Claude. I use Claudia to make sure that my stuff doesn't sound like
that's
I'm
your
doing
wife.
it the wrong way.
That was good.
Well,
That was
and
That's
Steve and I
real.
are
She's
all
my
about
proofreader.
we're all about proving James wrong. James, who was on a second ago, is our IT guy, our oldest employee, right, Stephen? 26 years, 27
Uh-huh.
years. So we really enjoy proving him wrong. But thank you, James. I'm just joking. And act out. Oh, he came on video just to do that. And he went back
Thanks,
off.
James.
Um, yeah, she just wrote it. If it frames how you want the LLM to behave, the language learning model.
Yep.
She's got all the lingo down.
Yeah.
Um,
That works really good too. I've done that
Well,
with
there he is
ChatGPT and
again.
tuned
Now
it
he
in.
pops up again.
Sorry,
they-
I've tuned ChatGPT doing that too because you can tell it like I tell it that I want it to be an expert in something, and then it knows, and then I tell it this is how the style that I want you to write it in, and it writes it. And it just seems like Claude does it so much better. I don't know
Really?
why, but it
Okay.
just
All right.
tunes it in just a little bit better.
I'm going to download it now.
Stephen, we only got a few minutes left, but Amari wrote something that was kind of nice. She wrote, as far as misunderstandings go, I like, in quotes, help me understand what is happening instead of what is going on. Help me understand what's happening instead of what is going on. Steven's very good at this, guys. He's very good he's kind of like, I don't know if you guys, I'm totally dating myself, but because it was even old when I was a kid. Columbo. He was like a private
Yeah.
investigator, and everybody thought he was just a fumbling old man in a trench coat with mustard stains, and he would ask a lot of stupid questions. He ended up figuring
What
out
a
the
backward
murder.
compliment there, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Combo was
But
cool.
no, it's a very so that is a great way of getting people to let their guard down. You get that critical information, and then you go for the jugular. No, you just figure out a solution. Yeah, so you can look that up if you're too young for that show, which I think I'm too young for even.
Somebody says I prefer Murder, She Wrote.
Oh boy, it's all these old people shows.
No, I love those when TV was good.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. No more questions.
Jesse put something on there. He said, "Hey team, you guys were right last week. I found out my main contact at the company had quit. I'm now back on track with another employee, and I'm sending them the prototypes. What should my next steps be once they receive those prototypes?"
I can say that if you sent the prototype, you should always send it so that somebody signs for it for sure, because you want to make sure it got to the person, or at least you can track it a little bit. And then we're just doing this with the client right now. 2 clients, actually, the prototypes have been sent to the company. The client told us when they sent them. They'll know when they'll be there. Once they get there, I'll give them a day or 2 and they'll reach out just to say, hey, the prototypes were delivered. Did you get them? That's all I want to know.
Also, you guys, we've talked a lot about this. Just make sure prototypes break, make sure it's packaged right, track it right, they get lost. But make sure if you have a little video to show someone how to use it, that could be very helpful. But just make sure, just seeing a prototype and just imagine they're going to open it up and they're going to figure it out. Usually they have a bad experience with that. So just give them everything they knew, everything they need to have a good experience with their prototype. So do a little video and send it to them. Yeah.
Yeah, and a QR code on the product that says "Watch this video before using it." You scan it with your phone.
Yeah.
That's a thing
Those
that some of our members do.
I do. If you want your prototype back, to send them a return mailing address to send it back. You got to make it super easy for them.
Label. Yeah.
Super easy. Yeah.
And even then, you probably won't get it back.
And even then, you might not get it back.
Don't plan on getting it back.
Your next steps to do, I would just stay following up with them, stay in touch with them, see if they, they have any questions on your prototype, if there's, any concerns that they have. I'd give that, week or 2 follow-up time and just stay consistently following up with them.
So, Stephen, one last question. This one is from our YouTube audience. The Wreath Machine. What happens after the contract expires on a product with a company? Do you just keep on selling the product on your own? No, that's not how it goes most of the time. Stephen, usually contracts are 3 or 5 years. I always see that as somewhat irrelevant because you want them to keep selling it forever as long as they're exceeding minimum guarantees and doing well and you're happy with the sales, right? You're not going to a company isn't going to launch your product, spend $100,000 launching it, create awareness of it, put it distribution everywhere, it's selling well, and then you're like, oh, the contract's up, I'm taking it back. Why would you want to do that?
No, they usually have an option. If everything's going well, they're going to continue selling it.
That's what mine was too.
Mine had a renewal clause in it. After 5 years, if they within 30 days of the contract being 30, 60 days of the contract expiring, I could say, I want it back. They could say, we don't want to do it. If nobody said anything, it just renewed for another 5 years. And it can renew another 5. And just constant, yeah.
It kind of works itself out. The person asked this question. It's really not an issue I see in inventors. having much, you know. But no, you shouldn't be like stealing it back from them.
Products selling, you're going to want them to continue, and they're
Yeah.
going to want to continue.
You
Yeah,
guys, I just want to welcome everybody and thank you for coming tonight. I want to stop on time. We want to start on time as well. We'll see you next week, and thank you for joining us for another Wednesday, the Licensing Playbook Live, and we'll see you next week.
James, you're the host, so you'll